My childhood was very chaotic. My dad was a drug addict from a very young age. And I used to think, why are there holes in the door? And I look back now and know it's because my mum and dad used to fight. I understand my mum and dad because they went through so much trauma. My mum was abandoned when she was 2 years old, she was in an orphanage. And then my dad, the same thing, his dad left him.
One thing I've learned from doing this podcast and speaking to guests like you is that, and even Eddie Hearn, who we had on last week, is how pivotal and how defining our early years are. And you are like a really fascinating guy in so many ways. We talked about your empathy, your achievements. All of these things suggest that because they're such extraordinary things or out of the ordinary things, suggest that you probably had quite an out of ordinary childhood. Whenever I meet someone who is achieved out of ordinary things, I always think, okay, tell me about your childhood. So how was your childhood, Joe?
Oh, so you don't think it was a stable childhood? You think there was something a bit more that motivated me on to...
I think, and it doesn't necessarily mean it was like a really bad childhood or a good childhood. I always, and I actually did childhood psychology for 2 years, which people don't know about. This is why I'm so fascinated by like all the Freudian psychology and how one thing that happened, I've got a friend who told me that one thing that happened when he was a kid, he still remembers to this day, and he holds that one comment that someone in his family made to him as the reason for probably his single biggest flaw in his personality. And it was just one comment on one day from a parent.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's the power of the power of a negative thought. Like if someone says your teeth are a bit crooked or you've got skinny legs, like someone could say you've got lovely teeth your whole life, but you still think your teeth are crooked.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me in the past. Like I got Invisalign because a girlfriend said to me once, your teeth are a bit wonky, or
really,
and someone said about, this is a true story. When I was 16, I had glasses, but I was really embarrassed. I was really shy about it. And the girl I was going out with I said something like, I wonder if I'd look good in glasses. And she said, oh no, you'd look silly in glasses. So I never wore them for 2 or 3 years. Crazy. I used to hide them in my car, drive to her house, take them out. And it's that thing of, we really take on these thoughts and it can really affect our confidence. That definitely happened to me as a kid. But I suppose my childhood was very chaotic. It was very unstable. My dad was a drug addict from a very young age. So, it was a bit like, he was there 1 minute, next minute he was in rehab, next minute he was back on the gear, and my mum would take him back and it was all good, and then they'd be arguing. And, I lived in a council flat with really thin doors. So it was like plywood. And so there used to be holes in the wall, there used to be holes in the door. Because I remember, I used to think, why are there holes in the door? And I look back now and know it's because my mum and dad used to fight and argue, and it'd be like, it was a symbol of aggression and impatience and intolerance, and then it'd be gone. And so I didn't have a positive role model in terms of a male. And also when it comes to marriage, my mum and dad never got married. If they were married, they would have been divorced 100 times. So I had similar beliefs around marriage and commitment to you. Like when I hear you talking about it, like I suppose I had the same feelings when I was 25. I didn't believe that people stay together, that people are committed, that marriage is going to work, that, people get through tough time, because it was always like when it got shit and tough, my dad would piss off and we'd be back on our own again. So, again, it was a tough childhood, but I had a happy childhood. I don't feel like resentment. I don't look back and be like, I wish it was different. I wish my dad was there, because we got a great relationship today. But it definitely affected me. The destruction of drugs in my household and what came with that, all the chaos, really put me off ever wanting to smoke weed or drink alcohol. I was so scared that I was going to enjoy it and I was going to become an addict. I thought it was a genetic thing. I thought, I don't want to be a drug addict, so I wouldn't go near it. So it definitely shaped me, and when I look at where my love and generosity and empathy comes from, it's my mum. Like my mum she's so kind and loving, and she's so always putting other people first. And I think that definitely shaped me as an adult.
I didn't actually know this stuff about you before. I didn't know that you'd been through such a traumatic early childhood. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, fucking hell, it's remarkable that you are who you are and that you have such feelings of empathy, and you're just such a kind human being, having gone through such a, violent and traumatic childhood. And I guess that is credit to your mum.
I suppose, yeah, I look back when I get asked in interviews now, like where did your generosity and your kindness come from, and your kind of desire to want to help others? It's about help. I'm happiest when I'm helping others. So if I know I'm helping someone or I'm helping millions, I'm really happy. And so that when it stopped, I felt I haven't got my purpose. I'm not valuable, but I've realized I am still valuable. I'm still helping people. But yeah, my mum, she left school at 15, no qualifications. She met my dad in a squat. She had my brother when she was 17. Then she had me when she was 19. She's like a kid. And when we used to go places, like people used to say, "Is that your sister?" She looked so young. You can't imagine. But somewhere along the line, she taught me value. She taught me respect. If I had to be home at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, I was home at 10 o'clock. My mates were down the park till 1, 2, 3 a.m. because their parents let them run loose, and they were the ones graffitiing. They were the ones smoking weed. They were the ones that got in trouble for crimes and whatnot. So my mum was really, considering she wasn't parented, her dad left her when she was a kid. She was abandoned when she was a baby. So I don't know where her love comes from, but she's got this ability to just love and be so generous. And when she went to university, she went back, she said, "I want to study." She went to become a social worker. So the first thing she'd done with her life was go and help people that had, young offenders, people that had been through abuse and all this stuff. So it has to come from her. It's emotional because my mum, so I took my mum for dinner the night before it was going to be announced, and I said to her, like, "We're celebrating my birthday tonight, aren't we? Because we were having a late birthday dinner, but it's something else."
Your MBE?
Yeah, my MBE. And I said, "Mum, I've got an MBE." And we're in the middle of Lucky Cat restaurant in London, and she burst into tears.
Really?
And I'm like in the middle of the restaurant crying with her. And she's like, when she was younger, like all her friends used to say, "You're a fucking shit parent." And imagine the pride. And it's she raised me. Like, I have to put it down to her.
You talked about your dad there, and so you said that you've after all that you'd been through and all you'd observed and his addiction and his battles with addiction, you've got a good relationship with him now.
Yeah, we do, because, addiction never goes away. Like, he's, he does his NA meetings, it's a part of his life, but he needs that. He needs to have a fellowship and a network of people to talk to. Like, I don't understand addiction. I've never been addicted to anything. So for me, it's like, he needs that network of people he can talk to, and that's obviously at the moment mostly through Zoom, but usually it's like NA meetings. You go and have a talk and you feel better. And he's had therapy, but he's learned. He's evolved. Like, again, like his dad left him, and I understand my mum and dad because they went through so much trauma. My mum was abandoned when she was 2 years old. She was in an orphanage, and then my dad, the same thing. His dad left him. Like, he didn't have, he didn't ever say. I don't think my dad's dad told him he loved him until he was like on his deathbed when he had cancer. So like, I understand where that addiction, why my dad chose to like do that with his life, and I understand why my mum had OCD, like, because I know what she went through as a kid. I know what she went through as a young teenager, and so you start to understand it, and then you start to really love your parents even more because they protect you. When you're a kid, they're just protecting you. They can't tell you what they went through. They can't tell you this stuff. So it really like makes you realize how much trauma they've had and where that's manifested. And so now, like, my relationship with my dad is, I understand him. I understand that he has seasonal depression. During the winter, he's really low, and he'll have a holiday and he feels great, and he comes back and he's up and down, and that's him. And I just have to kind of love him. And although I'm quite consistent with my emotions, and you want everyone around you to be happy all the time, didn't you? Think, I'll buy him a motorbike. I'll send him to the Maldives. You can go and stay at my house in America. It's all temporary. It doesn't do a lot, So real connection comes from like communicating, reaching out, spending time with him. Like, he's happy when he comes around and we go for a walk or we go out on our skateboards together. We've got electric skateboards. So it's about reconnecting and being with him. And he needs that. My dad needs to see the grandkids. He needs to see my brothers. He needs to see me. And I've just learned that, like I said, that really nice quote that the antidote to addiction is connection, not push them away. I hate you. I can't stand it. Why are you relapsing again? Why are you going into depression? The mind's really complex, and you have to like understand that people aren't going to always be how you want them to be, and you have to love them unconditionally. But if you asked me as a teenager, I would be too angry. I would be like, fuck that. No, like, I can't deal with it. I don't have a dad. My dad's a drug addict. I don't speak to him. I wouldn't have had the emotional ability to deal with that. But now, as an adult, I'm 35 and I can understand it a bit more.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favour. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.